This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. I'm excited today. We have one of the greatest rankers in the history of fantasy football on the show today. We're going to talk some football, talk some stacked fantasy football. Welcome to the show. It's Justin Boone from Yahoo Fantasy.
I appreciate you bringing me on. We set this one up a while ago. It's always tough making time during the season to do it, but I wanted to make sure I was available for this one. And yeah, I'm excited, man. You sent me some show notes, and I think it's going to be a great conversation.
It should be good, and I think it's great to start with. Obviously, you know what's going on with Yahoo. It's a new role for you. Talk about this role with Yahoo, what you're doing over there, and how that began.
Yeah, what a change. It's been, it seems like it's been a long time that I've been there, but it's only been a few months now. And yeah, my last gig, being there for 12 years, I had to make that decision, whether I was going to jump to somewhere else. I really was looking for that new challenge, and Yahoo came along at the right time, and I couldn't be happier. Like, things have been going so well there. Everyone there is awesome. People that are on the shows with me, like Matt Harmon, Scott Pianowski, and everybody, to everyone behind the scenes. It's just been fantastic. And yeah, we're just getting started too. Like, we kind of got thrown into the season because I made the change in the summer, and we kind of got thrown into the season right away. So we're still sorting things out. I know I'll put up certain articles and people are trying to go, hey, what if you did it this way? What if you did it that way? Not even people at Yahoo, people who follow me are going, hey, can you change this? Can you change that? We're figuring it out on the fly. I think we've gotten to a really good place with everything now, but we're only going to keep tinkering and improving. And yeah, I can't wait to see where we can take it.
I love it. No, it's cool to see, because I know you were at the Fantasy Football Expo. It's cool to see you there. And then you dove straight into it. I mean, you were in Vegas doing all kinds of content for Yahoo. And I think that's where it was in Las Vegas, right? How was that kind of like little world tour with Yahoo preseason?
Yeah, I normally don't do any traveling once August rolls around and I start to get really busy with content, but obviously made an exception this year. It was my first time going to Canton, going to the Fantasy Expo, and I certainly made the most of it. I had a ton of fun that weekend. By the end of the weekend, I had no voice to speak of, could barely talk at all, but I think that shows you how much fun I had. And it was just great to meet so many people who I had known and felt like I was friends with for a decade plus, but had only really done shows like this with them. It's different when you get to meet somebody in person and get to establish that rapport as well, and get to find out that so many people in the industry are exactly what you thought they were. They're just such nice people, so supportive. It's such a great community. And yeah, I hopefully can keep going to that year after year, because it was a great time. And then the Vegas thing, that was more of a work trip. I know people want to, friends of mine hearing, I went to Vegas. Oh, that must've been so fun. We had a little bit of fun, don't get me wrong, but we were filming a bunch of shows. We were producing a lot of content, doing Q&As, had a lot of fun along the way, but it was also kind of a work trip. So wasn't the usual trip to Vegas that I'm used to.
I love it. But no, it's cool to see you at the Expo. Like I said, I think that obviously it's a great event for the community, and it is surreal when you finally get to meet people that you've interacted with for years and years. I'm sure that was pretty special. I'm glad that your plan is to return, because it's a really cool event. It was awesome to have you there.
Yeah, it was a great time. Shout out to Rich Rebar, John Daigle, and Ian Hartitz. I'm not going to name everybody, but those guys, it was especially fun hanging out with them every night. And yeah, just sharing stories from the industry, and getting to go a little bit deeper, a little more behind the scenes than maybe we get to do when we're talking for 15-20 minutes before we record a show like this. But yeah, great time, great event, and I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, highly recommended for anybody that's interested in going. Now, for you, obviously, you are a dedicated person in this fantasy industry. You've been doing it for a long time. Where did your passion for sports begin? Growing up, like, who were your favorite teams, and what were some of those experiences like?
Yeah, so for me, my parents put me in sports at a very young age, like 4 or 5. I'm Canadian, so obviously I was put on a pair of skates and thrown on some ice, and they had me in hockey at like 4 years old. Also played soccer as well. Didn't really get into football. Like, I followed football. My dad would watch the Bills, and I kind of grew up in that impressionable age when they were so good. Jim Kelly, K-Gun, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith. Those were a lot of my favorite players, but they were going to the Super Bowl every year. How could you not, really get into that? I was growing up in Niagara Falls, about 45 minutes from Buffalo, from the stadium. Just jumped on board the bandwagon there as a little kid, but like didn't totally like established my love for football specifically until I got to high school. And that was the first time that I actually played football. And when that happened, the other sports started to die off for me. I was like, I don't want to play hockey anymore. I don't need to play soccer anymore. This is the one. This is the sport that I love. I love the chess match. I love the physicality, everything about it. And so, yeah, from there, I kind of knew at that point I wanted to have some sort of career in football. And I've just been so fortunate to be able to carve one out.
So growing up in that area, were you a Blue Jays fan? Are you a Blue Jays fan? I got to ask as a Mariner fan. I know you're competing with some serious Mariner fans in this stacked league too. So
yeah, Ben Gretsch and whatnot.
Kendall, yep.
I was a Blue Jays fan. I am a Blue Jays fan. I'm not the biggest baseball fan. I'm not a diehard fan of baseball like I am with football, but certainly get out to a lot of Blue Jays games and love that they're doing well right now, even though in this series I'm pretty worried about how it's going to turn out. But yeah, you can't get ahead of yourself. You started to feel like, oh, maybe this could be a year. Maybe we get to the World Series. And I thought it would be like the Dodgers or someone that would destroy them. And yet, no, it looks like the Mariners are going to be the ones that dispel them here. But it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
Of all teams in sports, so you don't expect the Mariners to sneak up on you for sure. No, that's cool. So, but as a fan, like just think about the years, early years. Do you have a major moment, like the biggest moment as a sports fan, your favorite moment of all time?
I mean, my teams didn't have a ton of success. Obviously, like the Raptors, Toronto Raptors, I was a big fan of them, and seeing them get to win a title was pretty cool. That was a little more recent, of course. I would say one that stands out for me is I used to be a Bills season ticket holder when I was younger and when I was living a little closer to Buffalo. And we had one year where we went to a game around Christmas time, and all my buddies dressed up in Santa Claus costumes. And as we were tailgating, having a great time. And as we were about to go into the stadium, a friend of mine threw out the idea, what if we threw some beers into someone's Santa belly? Maybe we could get them into the stadium. And so I was the fool who decided to try that, and it did work. We were able to get it in. And so we brought those into the stadium, which, obviously you should not do that, anyone at home, but the mistakes you make when you're growing up. And got in the stadium, and that game ended up being a absolute disaster because the weather went crazy. We had hail, we had snow, we had rain, we had it all, and we were wearing these like thin Santa Claus costumes, just freezing, and yet out there supporting the Bills, having a great time along the way. So that one always stands out to me. Wasn't like it was a Super Bowl or something like that, but definitely stands out to me as a moment that I just, loved being at the stadium, being with my buddies, and, getting to be a Bills fan in the elements, which will continue because they are not going to build a dome on that new stadium either.
Crazy. But yeah, those are kind of sports memories you love to hear, right? Just times with friends, something like that. At least you guys were full, right? Drinking those beers. So when along the line did you discover fantasy sports?
So I started playing in like leagues with my buddies way back. I don't know what year it was, a long time ago. But I really didn't get like super into fantasy until my first job coming out of school. I worked in the Canadian Football League in the CFL for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And the guys in that office, my coworkers there, were like hardcore fantasy players at a level like I had not played at before. And so I had to very quickly play catch up and start to figure out some of the tricks of the trade, some of the ways that you can manipulate your roster a little bit to try to gain edges here or there, how you can win in trades along the way. Don't get married to the team you draft, all that sort of stuff. So that really like started to refine me as a fantasy player. That's when I got serious about it. That's when I started doing like my own rankings and things of that nature, figuring out my own waiver wire lists, content that I was just doing for myself. I wasn't producing that for anyone. It was just for me. And then my next job after that, I worked for TSN, which is like Canadian ESPN, basically. Just think ESPN, everybody, but ESPN with a whole bunch of hockey at the start of the show. And then they get to the other sports. And when I got there and I was still doing that same kind of work on the side, we had a great fantasy analyst at the time at TSN, Scott Cullen, a friend of mine, and he was doing every sport for fantasy by himself. And I started to go, well, I'm doing this stuff already. Cully, would you want some help? Would you want me to potentially do this? It was over and above my actual job. I was running the NFL section, the MMA section there and stuff. It had nothing to do with fantasy, but I figured I could contribute, and he was nice enough to let me, and the management there was on board with it. So I started posting my rankings and some other work there. That's when I got into the Fantasy Pros contest around that time, because now my work was up on a legitimate site. And hey, why not test yourself against some of the other analysts in the industry? Thinking, I'm a competitive guy, but had no, foolish notions that I would do really well in the contest. Just was curious where I stacked up. And that first year that I was in it, I finished 8th. And I thought, oh, maybe it was beginner's luck. Like, that's pretty wild. And then the second year, I think I finished 10th the second year. And at that point, I was like, wait a minute, I might be able to win this thing. Took me a lot longer than I expected. Took me several more years before I got that job done. But yeah, I was happy to finally be able to take home first place in that contest in 2019, and just kept refining things along the way. And by that point, yeah, just really happy with where my content was at, the rankings process, all the stuff that I'm doing.
Well, obviously worked out really well, and it's true. I mean, I remember looking at those rankings every year, who's finishing it, and I just knew every time I look at that top 10, Justin Boone was going to be there, which is pretty cool. A lot of competition, a lot of great people in this space, and so hats off to you for all that success. Now, obviously, I'm sure you play in a bunch of fantasy leagues. Is there one league that's like your primary league, like one league you care about the most?
I do have a league. I was not in it since the inception of the league, but some buddies of mine from high school had a league with them and some guys that they went to university with. And it's probably 8-9 years ago now. They reached out to me right before the season. And one of my friends was like, hey, man, we're having a really hard time filling this last spot. We had a guy leave the league. Obviously thought of you. Would you be willing to join the league? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? Right. It was like, join the league now and we're going to draft this weekend or something like that. It was like a really short turnaround. And I joined the league, and everyone else found out that I had joined the league, and that friend had invited me, and they said, why on earth did you let Boone into this league? What are you doing? Right. So I joined that league, and I was like, I'm going to be the Yankees. I'm going to walk in and I'm going to have that. I'm going to play it up. Right. Let's have some fun. I'm just going to cash money out of this league every year. I was trash talking like I was in WWE or something like that. And had a lot of fun with it, but didn't win. I was going to the finals. I was going to the semifinals every year. Didn't win for like 3 or 4 years. And that became like the running joke in the league that, hey, you're doing well in this Fantasy Pros contest. You're, 4th overall in your rankings this year. And yet you're, 5th in our league. So, hey, look how good we are. It was a lot of fun, right? Like a lot of jokes. And then when I finally won the league, I knew I had to do something special. So I took some of the money that I won from the league. I went out and I got a cameo, and I wanted to get a cameo from somebody that I thought could like do a good job chirping everybody else. And I figured a stand-up comic would be the best. And at the time, Gilbert Godfrey was still with us. And I got Gilbert Godfrey to do a video. You only have like 250 characters to like put in any information. So I had a couple inside jokes, and then I put everyone's name in the league, and I just said roast everybody. And he did a fantastic job of roasting everyone. It is certainly not PG. We could never play it for anyone other than our buddies, but everyone had a really good time when I sent that out. A lot of laughs. To this day, it gets played every year at our draft party. We do a draft party every year, and we make sure that we play it. And yeah, that was just a fun way to kind of get everybody back after they had roasted me for a few years when I wasn't winning.
Gotta love it. Yeah, Cameo. Shout out to Cameo. Great thing to infuse into a fantasy league. In my home league this year, we had Adam Rank like set the draft order. Same kind of thing. I just spit a bunch of stuff at Adam, and he just absolutely destroyed it, crushed it. It's a fun way it's unexpected. I think in fantasy leagues, that's the key. With a home league, like surprise your league mates with stuff, and especially like a Cameo. Great way to do it. I love it. You got to send me that video privately because I've got to see it.
and I love
I'll sign an NDA.
I should say too, in that league, another really unique thing about it that's fun is a friend of mine's an aerospace engineer, and he has taken it upon himself to every year come up with like some crazy way of doing the draft lottery. So he will do like it's slotted. It's a keeper league, and we do sort of like a slotted thing where if you finish last, you get like a certain number of chances at the first overall pick and that sort of thing. And he built like a 10-foot tall Plinko board one year where he ran different colored marbles for every team, and you had a certain number of marbles. And at the end, it reached like a funnel sort of thing. And then whatever order they finished in was going to be the order that we drafted in. He's done a rubber duck race where he set up like a whole course. and there was all like hundreds of rubber ducks in this course. And as it went through, everyone, whoever couldn't make it is watching on video, and ducks are crossing the line. Everybody's celebrating. He did like a Gatling gun Nerf thing where he shot them all at a target. He's had all these wild ideas. Every season we get so excited to figure out what he's going to come up with. So that's been a really fun aspect of that league too.
Well, you're speaking my language with all that stuff. I think that's at the heart. I think everybody who loves fantasy, it's because of some, home league experience, something that hooked them. And I think that kind of stuff it goes so far to keeping a league engaged and excited and focused on that league. So I love that. I love that you've had those experiences. That's great. And obviously you've been, again, doing great things in this industry. What's been the most rewarding part of your journey in this space?
I would say when I had my old show, I feel like I went out of my way to, anytime that I saw new content creators coming up who were doing good work, who were putting the effort in and were producing something that I thought was valuable to the industry, I would reach out. I would bring them on the show. I would try to highlight their work. And a lot of them have gone on to become, some names that people know very well now and gone on to big things. And I take a lot of pride in that. Like, I think people should be doing that. I think people did that with me when I was coming up, people reaching out. Like, I got to see Jeff Ratcliffe at the Fantasy Expo. He was one of the first people in the industry who reached out to me and like acknowledged that the work that I was doing way back in the day was strong, and that he really appreciated it. And there's just so much of that. Like, I was on the couch with Sigmund Bloom yesterday, and I was saying that when I got into the fantasy industry, I thought that it was going to be this like cutthroat, competitive, everyone, trying to beat everybody else. And it's been the exact opposite. Like, everyone is so supportive. Everyone's building off of each other's work, and it's been great. It's like this almost like, friendly, like family environment. And I just never expected that at all, but that's the way it should be, right? Like, if you see someone else coming up, it's not a competitive thing. It's a, hey, what are you offering that could help the industry as a whole? And let's make that better. Let's shine a light on that, and let's get you rewarded for that. If you're, making that on a blog or something of your own, hey, let's see if someone else out there can recognize it and maybe hire you to do that, and get you paid and get you rewarded for that hard work. And I think that's been the coolest thing about the fantasy industry, just how nice everyone is, how welcoming everyone is. And I want to keep that going too.
I love it. Now, what advice do you have for people that want to get more involved in the industry with content creation and whatnot?
I get asked this question a lot, and I don't feel like I have a good answer for it. Like, people ask me, like, kind of, what did you do? And I feel like my answer is always just like, I dedicated my whole life to doing, like, to work and trying to outwork everyone. And yeah, so I think that's a big part of it, like being willing to sacrifice. Like, if you're covering football, I don't know that you can do like Monday to Friday and check out for the weekend and come back, right? Like, you have to accept that. When I used to hire people on my NFL team at my last job, you had to tell them coming in, like, you're going to have to work a lot of weekends. Like, that's just going to be part of this job. And some people didn't want that. So you have to acknowledge that you're going to have to, put in that extra effort. There's going to be nights, there's going to be weekends. For me, I probably take it to an unhealthy level where there's times that if I'm not happy with where my rankings are at or something, I will cancel plans on family and friends. And I think at this point, they just kind of know that in the fall, that's always going to be a possibility that I'm going to choose work over whatever plans we have. I've gotten better in recent years, but still there's the odd time. So I think that's part of it. And then also like trying to find an area where you can bring something new. And I say this as someone who does rankings and a trade value chart and a waiver wire column and that sort of stuff. But I think if you're coming into the industry, if your plan is to just do that same content that there's already so many people doing, it's going to be very difficult for you to break in, right? So trying to find a way where you can create content that's kind of new, even if it is based on something that everyone's doing, finding a new angle to do it, finding a new medium to put it out on, like all that sort of stuff, kind of go outside of the box. So outwork everybody, but then try to find ways to produce content that's going to be different than what's already out there, because that's what's going to help you get noticed.
That's great advice. Now, yeah, obviously, there's a lot of people in this industry doing great things, and yeah, obviously, finding a niche always helps. Putting in the work helps. Now, speaking of great people in this industry, you were involved in a fantasy league called Stacked. I mean, it's loaded. Some of the biggest names in the fantasy industry competing for $10,000 in charity money, 5 going to Fantasy Cares, and 5 going to a charity of the Champion's Choice. What made you want to compete in this league?
Well, I will say right off the top that, Jeremy has done such fantastic work. Jeremy, who's organized it, has done such fantastic work, with the Reddit fantasy football page, kind of like I'm saying, helping to build the community, finding another area where we could get more people involved, get more conversation, share content over there. He set up, so many AMAs where now like the AMA August over there is like such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I give him a lot of credit for that. So when he reached out, like anytime he reaches out with something, I'm going to go out of my way to try to make sure I can get involved. And then, when it's for charity, like no matter what it is, I want to try to help if I can. I had a woman contact me a couple years ago, and she said that her husband was a big fan of my work and his birthday was coming up. And she was like, I don't know if you do this, but is there any way that like I could pay you to do like a call with him to go over his team or whatever? And I said, you don't have to pay me, but what if you donated to charity and then showed me the proof of that? And then I would do the call. And I think she was kind of surprised that that's the route that I went with it. But, my wife has worked at humane societies. We love animals. We often try to make sure we're donating to different, animal charities. And so for that one, we came up with an animal charity that it was like a rescue that she was willing to donate to, and show me the proof. And then I did the call with her husband. And then when that happens, then you feel like, okay, this person put money down. Now I have to go over and above, right? Like it was like we had initially agreed to like a 15-20 minute call. And I think by the end, I was probably on the phone for like an hour with him. And again, not something that I do often, but when it's for charity, I'm definitely willing to step up.
What charity are you competing for in this league?
So you would think based on what I said that I would have found an animal charity, but we do those so often that I want to do something different. And another one that I have kind of a close personal tie to is the Alzheimer's Association. And that's because my grandmother suffered from it. And, we had to watch that, at what I felt like was a young age for her in her 60s, in her early 60s. She started to deal with that, started to kind of fade away. And it was just so difficult. Like her body was around for much, much longer. And yet her mind kind of, started to lose those memories, lose the recognition of everyone, to the point where she just didn't really know who anyone was, including my grandfather. So it was very difficult to see. And that's one that, I also kind of hold near and dear. And there's been other charity leagues like this where it comes around, and if I could put the fantasy football skills to use and try to raise some money for that, then I think that's a worthy cause.
I love it. Now this league, highly competitive. You got Dave Richard kind of leading the way. He's 5-1. His one loss was by like a half a point, I believe. Pretty impressive. 2, 3, and 4. You got Kendall Valenzuela, Chris Harris, Sigmund Bloom, all at 4 and 2. Their point totals are neck and neck. At 3 and 3 in the 5, 6, 7, 8 hole, you got Andy Behrens, Ben Gretsch, David Kitchen, Andrew Cooper, all again competing in that spot where you kind of won them 3 and 3. You and John Daigle 2 and 4. Jake Seeley at 2 and 4. And Greg Branos at 1 in 5. And yes, there's a last place punishment in this league. People are fighting to get out of that position. You're 2 and 4. You're putting up points. You're putting in the work. But we're 2 and 4. Let's talk about the roster build, right? So for you, started off with Saquon. You got AJ Brown, Jaden Daniels, Rishi Rice, right? So you're one of those guys that has Rishi Rice. Talk about this roster build for you. Is this kind of normal for you at this position in the draft? And then tie that into what you expect with Rice coming. I know you also have Igbuke, who went down. So talk about how you're going to kind of work through this challenge.
So when we did the draft, I certainly didn't expect to take 2 Eagles with my first 2 picks, but sometimes that's the way it goes. And at the time I talked myself into it, thinking that offense is so condensed and it was going to obviously work out for me. Not so much so far. And I definitely have some concerns about those 2 guys moving forward here, to the point where recently I've been saying to people, like, I would try to trade away Saquon Barkley if you can get something of value for him back. In this league against such strong analysts, that's going to be a tough thing to do, because I've tried to make a couple trades in this league, not necessarily with Saquon, but with other players, and it hasn't really gone, the way I'd hoped. People are, very difficult making those deals. But that's just the way it is in any sort of analyst league. But I was happy with the team coming out of that draft and having Rashee Rice. The idea was just try to go, 3-3. If I can have a winning record, that's great, but just be 500 for when he gets back. And I've had some injuries. I mean, Jaden Daniels missed some time. I drafted James Conner and Trey Benson thinking, well, that's going to lock down at least one of my running back spots. And now both those guys are out. So dealt with that. Now Emeka Egbuka obviously is going to miss a little time, it looks like. So dealt with some injuries. I think I'm still like maybe 5th overall in points, like you were mentioning. Like the team, I've been near the top in points. So feeling pretty good about the roster overall. And I think a couple weeks ago, Jeremy had reached out, and one of the questions he had asked me was, what do you do with Rashee Rice when I think at the time I only had one win? And I said to him, as long as I can win one of my next two, if I can be 2-4 when Rashee Rice shows up and I've had the points that I've had, I feel like I can still turn this thing around. And that's exactly what happened. And it came with a very tough loss a couple weeks ago. I lost by like a point or two to Sigmund Bloom. We went, and I should have lost that game because we went into the Monday nighter and I think he had Brenton Strange going, and Brenton Strange needed like one catch in order to get the win for him. So I had just written it off. And then I got a notification on my phone that Brenton Strange was out for the game. And I was like, oh my God, like when did that happen? Is it possible that it was the miracle? But he did make one catch before he went down. And that was just enough for me to lose that game. So had I been able to get, I think Zach Ertz for me had no catches in that game, which is something he hadn't done in a long time. If Zach Ertz had made a catch in that game, I would have ended up with the win. So I'm very close to being 500 where I wanted to be. And now with Rashee Rice coming back, it's unfortunate that he's basically going to fill Emeka Egbuka's role instead of building on top of Egbuka. But I still really like the team. Like looking at my roster this week with, no buys that I'm really dealing with. And obviously with Egbuka and Trey Benson on the bench hurt. But overall, like looking at my roster, I'm very happy with where it's at. So I still think I got a shot to turn this thing around. But I got some work to do here. And of all the leagues I'm in, I'm pretty sure this is the only league, including all my dynasty leagues. This is the only league where I have a losing record right now. So I am a very competitive person. It is eating away at me. You can believe that. It is definitely killing me inside that against all the other analysts, I have the losing record. But we'll get it right. We'll get it right in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those teams that you're right. I mean, early on in the season, I'm asking some of these, these managers who's got an impressive roster, and your name is often mentioned. So, I mean, it was definitely set up for success, some tough injuries. But this is the kind of team that you make the playoffs. You can disrupt some things for sure. Because I mean, I think your Jordan Mason acquisition or pick was great. Obviously, Adunze is playing well for the most part, right? And as soon as Egbuka comes back, I mean, and if Rashee Rice is hitting the ground running, I mean, you still got a great chance here. But someone's got to take down Dave Richard.
Yeah, like I mentioned with the Zach Ertz thing, I've been playing like tight end roulette a little bit, right? Just kind of rotating through, trying to find that right guy that can step up for me, and haven't really found it yet. I think right now I might be carrying 3 tight ends on the roster just because that's like the only spot that I'm not that confident in, and the one that I'm trying to find that player. So I think I have Ertz, I have Mason Taylor, and I think I might have Michael Mayer as well in that league right now. So we'll figure out who to play this week, probably between Taylor and Michael Mayer if Bowers is out. And hopefully we'll get one of these guys to step up and fill that spot. And at that point, then I wouldn't really have many questions week in and week out. I think the roster would be pretty set.
I love it. Now, is there one manager in this league that you want to beat the most or don't want to lose to?
I don't know that there's anyone. Again, we're going back to like everyone in the fantasy community is so nice to each other. Like, there's nobody that I have like a vendetta against. One that I probably don't want to lose to is Jake Seeley, though. And Jake and I go way back. Jake is a good friend. Way back in the day, he used to have a show on the Fantasy Network, Rankings Reveal show. And I forget who was doing it with him at the time, but they had to step out that season. And so he had an opening. I don't know that they were even going to bring anyone in for it. He was just going to do the show solo with Chris Meany. And I reached out, and Jake was nice enough to just be like, yeah, man, come on the show. And at the time, like, I wasn't really where I am now in my career. So it was a really nice gesture for him to do that. And, we've kept in touch since, and always been really, really good to me. So, when it's a friend like that, someone you're a little closer with, you don't want to see them get the best of you. So I will say Jake is probably the one that I don't want to lose to in this league.
I love it. Now, Jake's a great guy. Now, is there one team that you think has got the best team, most loaded right now, or are you on the fence with that?
I don't know if I've looked them all over thoroughly, but I will probably just go back to saying, Dave Richard, who you brought up a couple times there. It seems like he's the one that's had the most success so far, and he's coming off a huge week last week where I think it was actually Jake that was basically saying, like, man, like my team's already done this week. Stop racking up points against me. And so, yeah, I guess we'll say him.
Okay, that sounds fair. It's been a common theme in this league. You got one matchup this weekend. It's important though. John Daigle, both 2-4. This is a critical matchup. What's it going to take to pull off the W? I know you said that not a lot of bye weeks this week, so you're kind of in good shape to start off.
I'm in good shape, but I've been in good shape many weeks and still suffered losses. I've been projected to win many weeks and still suffered some losses. And injuries were a part of that, but not always. What it's going to take is it's going to take Daigle to stop making moves, because over the last 24 hours or so, he's making trades. He's making pickups on the waiver wire. That's got me a little worried, because initially when I looked at the matchup, I felt pretty good, but his roster, he's getting some guys back. I think he might be getting CeeDee Lamb back. So yeah, his team is looking pretty good. So yeah, on my end, it's pretty much set. I got to figure out the tight end thing, but other than that, I'm pretty much set. And yeah, I hope Daigle doesn't make any more big trades to solidify that roster, because I'll be in trouble, I think, if he does.
Well, best of luck. Obviously, at the end of the season, I'll have the champion back on the show. I'll also have last place on the show. I don't think you're going to be in that spot.
I hope not.
but I'll have the champion back. So hopefully you can make it back. Thrilled to see how this league turns out. It's been a ton of fun. The cool thing about this is people out there, consumers, get to kind of see from the outside what's going on in this league. And you guys are doing a great job kind of telling the story and sharing this journey along with the consumers of content. And it's been fun to witness. I've been privileged to be a part of it in this way. And it's been really cool. So thanks for everything. Wish you the best of luck. Can you tell viewers and listeners where to find you?
Yeah, I mean, all my content's at Yahoo now, so you can check that out on the site, on all the different apps that we have for Yahoo. I'm on the Fantasy Forecast with Matt Harmon a couple times a week on Mondays and on Thursdays, so come check that out on YouTube. You can come follow us and subscribe there. And then on basically all the social platforms, at Justin Boone. I've been lucky enough to get my name there as my handle, so come find me on those as well. And I will say thank you for having me on, but also thank you for probably doing what is maybe a little quicker version of the show than you normally do, because we were trying to find time to fit this in. So if people listening are like, hey, this is a little faster than I'm used to, I've been trying to keep my answers a little shorter, because I tend to go on and on when I'm talking on shows like this. I tried to be a little quicker so we can get through stuff, but you were more than accommodating to make this work. And I think we got through pretty much everything there. So I appreciate that from you as well.
Absolutely. No, I think we did a great job, and I'll have you back in the off season. We'll get into the more details about the things that keep you moving, and best of luck again. Can't wait to see how this turns out. Wish you all the best luck moving forward, buddy.
Same. Have a great season.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.